Hey everybody, welcome to Lex's World. How you all doing? The reason I have a big Mars Hydro light hanging behind me, and the reason I'm wearing this colorful Mars Hydro hoodie is because we're starting our next Grow Journal, and it so happens to be a Grow Journal featuring the Mars Hydro 1600. We're going to be doing things a little bit different from our last Grow Journal and seeing how much better we can do. And of course, as I normally do, I'm going to give away this light at the end. So stick around and watch if you want to win that, and hopefully we'll have some fun. Let's take a look inside the tent, and I'll show you what we're growing and what kind of equipment we're using this time around. Alright everyone, and here we are inside of our test grow tent that we typically use, our trusty 4x4 by Vivo Sun, and we're going to be growing 4 plants once again, and the seedlings have already sprouted just above ground. Let's take a nice look at them. They are on the left here, CBD Therapy by CBD Crew. And the reason we're growing such a CBD dominant zero THC strain is basically for the wife, because she likes to have some CBD dominant herb laying around. So we're going to grow these for her. And over on the other side, our other two seedlings that are just popping above ground are Diamond Girl by Greenhouse Seed Co. You can actually see the packaging laying over there. And I've never grown Diamond Girl before, but I'm looking forward to it because this is a well-known strain, and it did pop very nicely above ground. So I'm hoping that they're going to have some success. Looks like that one is still covered in with the seed, but the seed should drop off real soon. And I know what you guys are thinking. You're thinking, oh my god, Lex, what's with this low humidity level? But don't worry about it, because normally these plants are inside this dome, which brings the humidity up to a very manageable 75% for seedlings. So the big difference about this Grow Journal, other than the light, is number one, we're going to be using a little bit of low stress training this time around to give these plants a bit more coverage, and we're going to be transplanting them into smart fabric pots after they get out of these little containers for the seedling phase. I felt that they got a little bit too root bound last time in those clay pots, so now we're going to move them into these. And since we're in Canada, I wanted to mention to you guys that the 100 centimeter plant height limit is no more. We no longer have to worry about that. The powers that be decided it wasn't a manageable regulation, so now plants can be any height. There's just a limit as to how much you can harvest for personal use and keep in your house. So this time we're going to have a little bit more fun with the ceiling, so that should be a good time. For our grow equipment, we're going to be keeping things pretty basic as usual, just a little bit of Fox Farm Veg for the vegetative phase, and a little bit of Fox Farm Big Bloom for the bloom phase. Once we transplant the girls into their final pots, we're going to add a little bit of chicken manure for extra nitrogen. And to manage our pH, we have our handy dandy pH tester, and TNB Up and TNB Down by TNB Naturals, our long-term sponsor. I'll link down to them in the video description, and we'll also be using the Enricher by them if we run into any other CalMag issues. So this is our lineup of newts here, pretty basic. And for soil, we're keeping things even more basic. At the moment, these plants are in a little bit of grow mix that I got from a hydroponics store, but we're gonna stop spoiling them as soon as they're in the pots, in the smart pots, where they'll be getting regular fruiting potting soil that you can find at any old hardware store. On that note, let's discuss this grow light that we're using this time around. It is the Mars 2 1600 watt grow light. Why 1600 watt? Because it's 320 LEDs when the bloom switch is on that are 5 watts apiece. It's supposed to be a good replacement for one 800 watt metal halide bulb, which I think is going to turn out to be approximately accurate. I did run a lux meter test on this light, and even though lux meters are not ideal for measuring LEDs, I did find that it gives off a heck of a lot more power than the Mars Hydro 720 watt that we used last time around, and it does fill up the corners nicely. What you're looking at right now is the coverage sheet for this light, and it's supposed to have a core coverage area of 4.5 feet by 4.5 feet and a max coverage area of 6.5 by 6.5 feet. So it should have absolutely no issues in this 4x4 tent. And what we're going to be testing is whether the buds in the very back corners of the tent are going to be just as dense and large as the buds in the center. And as you guys can see, the light has 5 cooling fans of its own, and as I mentioned, a bloom switch and a veg switch. With the bloom switch on, it consumes about 630 watts from the wall, which isn't too shabby for something that can easily cover a 5x5, though it does produce a fair amount of heat. So in order to compensate for that heat, we did upgrade to a 6-inch booster fan in this tent this time around. That's going to be a little bit too much for a 4x4. We're going to run it with a speed controller at about 60 or 70% of its power, and hopefully that's going to keep the heat down. Now, I will link down to this light in the video description if you want to take a closer look at the specs yourself, but we're going to see how it performs, and yes, we will give it away at the end of the Grow Journal, which is probably going to be the biggest light giveaway I've done so far. I did kind of want to run a Grow Journal with a chip-on-board LED light, but I realized I wouldn't be able to give it away just yet, so we'll have to save that one for next time. On that note, guys, to keep an eye on these sprouts and how they do, make sure you subscribe and hit that like button. And we'll see you all here next time on Lex's World, and we'll be checking in on this Grow Journal in about 3 or 4 weeks. See you then.